circulate as much as possible beneath the room. He carefully designed the trench, digging a winding path for the heat to follow. The key was to make sure the heat wouldn't escape too quickly and would linger under the floor, warming it evenly. He adjusted the height and slope of the trench with precision, ensuring that the airflow would be just right. First, there was the bunengi, the entrance where the heat would flow in from the fireplace. Next, the gudulgayajari, where the heat would settle. The gudulgorai, where the heat would spread across the room. Then, the goregayjari, where the heat would be caught before it escaped. Finally, the chimney to keep out rain and cold air from the chimney. This is exhausting. But Lloyd pushed through, checking and refining every detail as he went. Once the trench was complete, he finished the walls of the tunnel with yellow clay. After letting it dry, he laid flat stones over the top. Thick stones near the fireplace, thinner stones on the opposite side. He made sure to place the stones carefully, adjusting the thickness to ensure even heating throughout the floor. The thicker stones would absorb more heat, while the thinner ones would heat up faster. Next, he filled the gaps between the stones with sai-chim, filler stones, and covered them with more yellow clay. After letting it dry, he smoothed out the surface, finishing the floor with a final layer of clay. The process took 3 full days, but at last, the Ondal floor was complete. However, the real test would have to wait. "Excuse me, Lord Lloyd." Just as Lloyd was admiring his work, a servant entered the room. "The Baron is requesting your presence." Baron Arcos Frontera, Lloyd's father was calling for him. Could it be? Lloyd had a sinking feeling as he left the unfinished Ondal room. The gossiping crowd fell silent as he passed through, and he headed towards the Baron's mansion. "I hear there are strange rumors going around." Clink! The sound of a fork hitting the plate echoed. The Baron had picked up his fork to take a bite of sausage, but he stopped halfway and looked across the table at Lloyd. "I heard you've been doing something behind the tavern." The Baron's gaze was not warm. In fact, it was cold. He wasn't looking at his son. He was looking at a troublesome problem. Lloyd sighed internally. "This is the downside of this body." Lloyd Frontera, the body's original owner, was a notorious scoundrel. He had a reputation for heavy drinking, gambling, and destroying property. His long history of misdeeds had left a trail of bad blood. And so, whenever Lloyd tried to do anything, people were quick to assume the worst. What's that scoundrel up to now? Is he planning another disaster? Is he crazy? Or is he planning to die? Let's just hope he doesn't cause too much trouble. That's the kind of judgmental gaze Lloyd always faced. Now was no different. "Go ahead, tell me. What kind of trouble are you stirring up this time?" The Baron's voice was as cold as his eyes. Lloyd knew this wasn't a question. It was a rebuke. He shrugged. "If you've heard the rumors, then you know. I'm building an Ondal room for the tavern owner." "An Ondal room?" "Yes. Are you trying to deceive me with such ridiculous nonsense as well?" "Well, if that's what you want to believe, I can't stop you." Lloyd answered vaguely. He knew it wouldn't help to explain further. No matter what he said, his father wouldn't believe him. Besides, he felt uncomfortable around the Baron. If I talk too much, he might suspect something. Parents could sense things about their children. Lloyd wasn't the original Lloyd Frontera. He was Kim Suho, inhabiting this body. He didn't want to risk his father noticing something was off. "I'll just focus on my meal if that's all, Father." Lloyd kept his response short, just as the old Lloyd would have. He focused on eating, eager to finish and leave as quickly as possible. Just as he was about to take another bite, the Baron's voice interrupted him. "Is this about the family's situation?" "You must know what's been happening lately. Are you doing this because of what happened?" The Baron was referring to the seizure of their assets due to the scam. "It's not a big deal. Just a passing storm. I'm Arcos Frontera, after all. Our family has ruled this land for 5 generations. I'll overcome this soon enough, so don't let it trouble you too much. Just keep your head straight, and I'll handle the rest." Lloyd froze. This was too familiar. He raised his head and looked at the Baron, a handsome, middle-aged man, but his face looked tired. It was the same expression Lloyd had seen on his father years ago. It's exactly the same. It was during his last leave from military service. Back then, his father had been struggling with a real estate scam. He had clenched his fists and said the same things. "Don't worry. Everything's fine. It's nothing. Focus on your studies, Suho," his father had said with a forced smile. And so Lloyd had believed everything was fine, until a year later, when his parents, unable to escape their financial ruin, made the ultimate tragic decision. Now the Baron was wearing that same mask. Lies! Everything was not fine. He was just pretending for his son's sake. Clink. Lloyd put down his fork. His plan to just focus on eating had long since faded. For a moment, he set aside his decision to keep his distance from the Baron. Without realizing it, he said something he had wanted to say to his father years ago. "Don't give up. I'll help too." It was the thing he had always wished he could say, if he could go back in time. He stood up quietly. The Baron looked at him with a strange expression, different from the cold gaze from earlier. Uncomfortable under that gaze, Lloyd quickly left the room. Fortunately, the Baron didn't try to stop him. The construction continued. The Ondal room in the tavern's backyard was starting to take shape. The curious townspeople gathered in groups, watching the process unfold. Amidst their murmurs and gossip, Lloyd began baking the roofing panels. This was to prevent the wood from rotting. At first he wasn't used to it, so he ruined a few panels. Some were burned too much and split apart, while others were too soft. But after a few tries, he got the hang of it. The key was to char the surface of the red pine panels to a depth of 3 millimeters. Perfect! The panels were now lighter and stronger, and they wouldn't absorb water easily. They'd last at least 10 years. With the panels ready, he began roofing the Ondal room. Afterward, he carefully laid out the layers for the floor. He spread out a thick layer of clay over the base, pressing it down. Then, he added an additional layer of paper and glued it tightly. Finally, he coated it with soybean oil and resin for waterproofing. The Ondal room was complete. Lloyd lit a fire to test it. He placed his hand on the floor. Perfect! A satisfied smile spread across his face. Now it was time to see how the client reacted.